Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and we're going to be talking about these Zetas to equip in the early game, especially with conjunction, kind of marrying up to the 2024 farming guide that was released. Again, link in the video description down below. Guys, I really hope you're enjoying the farming guide. I hope it gives you good information. Again, any questions you have, get them in the comments, let me know. I'm going to try and read through these, especially because I think I want to be answering your stuff. I'm going to apologize now if I'm yawning. It is pretty late for me right now, so we've got some King's soda in here. We don't have the King's cup, unfortunately, but we got some of the King's soda in here. So again, like, subscribe, comment down below, let me know your thoughts, and of course, got to give our shout out to the channel members for all of their continued support. If you're interested in joining those, again, links down below. There's links to everything down below. Guys, channel members, thank you so much for putting your faith in me. It is so appreciated. And again, even to those who are on the council, you may not yet be a master, but you still have a very special place in my heart. Thank you guys for, again, continuing to just put your faith in me. I truly do appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me. So let's get in here. Let's talk about the initial Zetas to equip in conjunction with the 2024 free-to-play farming guide. So the first Zeta is pretty obvious. This has never changed for me. Darth Vader's Merciless Massacre. This Zeta is still probably one of the most impactful Zetas in the early game. Merciless Massacre is huge. The first one is all enemies gain Merciless Target, which can't be evaded or resisted. When Darth Vader uses an ability, Merciless Target is removed from target enemy and he takes a bonus turn. If the target did not have Merciless Target, Merciless expires and Merciless Target is removed from all remaining enemies. What this means is that if you use it on an enemy who has taunt and then attack them again, you don't get to attack anybody else. So you want to make sure you pick around and attack everyone possible. Darth Vader can ignore taunt when targeting enemies with Merciless Target. While Merciless, he's immune to fear, stun, and turn meter manipulation, and his bonus turns do not trigger other characters' effects based on bonus turns or turn meter gain. It's such a fantastic ability. It turns him into the solo character that he is. To just show this in action, this is one of the Zetas where you've got to see it in action sometimes to truly just understand how amazing this is, and yet, of course, I don't have anything I can use it in. Of course, I have nothing I can use it in. Hold on. We're going to find something. Let's do a battle here. This is going to be like an extreme example. Okay, I need like a stupid leadership. There we go. That'll work. Alright, and let's just go with you. And we'll just bring you. Because I just want to showcase Vader. So here, right, when I hit Merciless Massacre, I can now target every single character on the field. So now I can go in here, and I'm going to be able to solo everyone. Right, look at this. You're just going to get through, solo everybody. It's crazy how good this Zeta is, right? Again, I can't stress enough how much this Zeta just completely changes the way you get to use Darth Vader. I am going to wait to use this ability here, because I want to use it in the final tier. One more. And then we'll do that, and then we get to start off with it. So yeah, a very good ability here. Crucial to a lot of the early Grand Arena stuff that you'll see. This guy being able to solo teams like Geonosians and other stuff is huge. So again, we're just going to go through basic everybody. And again, you can use other abilities there. I'm just using the basics. I wanted to show you being able to target every single character there. Very important Zeta. Again, that's probably the only one I'll be of to show, but extremely important overall. I love that guy so much. It's such a great ability. So, Merciless Massacre number 1. It is one of the most important Zetas. Now, remember in the farming guide I give you 2 options. If for some reason you skip Phoenix, then you want to put Piet's unique here. Otherwise, I think Captain Rex's unique will take precedence over Piet's. This is because Captain Rex unique Zeta to me, as I read it more and more, I was like, you know what? It makes a lot more sense to me. So here's the level 6, right? It's pretty decent. But at level 7, we reduce the damage penalty. You add 25 speed, which is big. And then you add in whenever a clone trooper falls below 50% health, they recover 35% health and protection. gain 50% defense, tenacity up. Whenever they're inflicted with a debuff, Phoenix or Clone Trooper, Rex gains 5% turn meter per debuff, and all allies recover 5% health and protection. That, to me, is extremely important to the Phoenix Squadron, right? Being, like, the way we're going to use him, I think that's so good. And especially, you think this part up here, whenever a Clone Trooper ally falls below 50% health, like, they're like, oh, that doesn't really help my Phoenix team. That triggers for Captain Rex himself. So targeting him is going to be something that players are going to want to do because he's got the best unique of all of them. So you drop him below 50% health. Oh, he's just recovered health and protection, and now it's that much harder to kill him. Piet's unique here, the Emperor's Trap. This is all about pairing this with the General Veer's leadership. So the Emperor's Trap is a buff that applies every single time that you take a turn. And with your Imperial Troopers, under General Veer's leadership, here, not the unique, in the leadership, whenever they gain a buff, they gain 10% turn meter. The Emperor's Trap counts as a buff, which means you're constantly gaining turn meter, and that allows you to start the turn meter train that you often see with Imperial Troopers. Highly recommend these two unique Zetas. Again, order being dependent on which team you're building first. I still think the Piet unique is a very good one to get early on, as I think it really offers a lot of benefits in that Trooper team. Now, next is the Bosk leadership, and this one, I don't know how many players are going to like this or not like this, but I'm going to explain it here, that you're going to have a bounty hunter team much earlier than you realize. So having his leadership is so incredibly important to the bounty hunters. What it does is that whenever an enemy suffers a buff, or suffers a debuff, or resists, all bounty hunter allies recover 5% health and protection. That protection and health recovery is crazy. Because in the early game, you think a lot of teams do not have a lot of damage, DPS damage. You think of how many times you've watched Geonosians just get stuck behind a Bosk who's gaining health and protection as they resist debuffs. I cannot tell you how important it is that Zeta is equipped. It is so good. Love the Bosk leadership. Bounty hunters are one of those core factions to me. They're a faction that grows with you. I still use this in PvE content all the time. PvP, not so much because of how I use my bounty hunters, but it's a Zeta you'll get a lot of use out of for a very long time. Next is Han Shoots First. The reason I like this Zeta with the Shoots First is I think it adds a level of dynamic. Need a sip of soda here. That's better. It adds a layer of complexity to the Commander Luke Skywalker team. By having Han double tap players, it just ruins people. The Shoots First, again, what it's talking about here is that the first time he uses his basic attack, he attacks again, dealing 50% less damage. That is huge, because on his basic, listen here, if the target has less than 50% turn meter, deal 75% more damage. Otherwise, remove 35% turn meter. So why is that good? Let's say you attack somebody who's got 51% turn meter. You're going to remove some of their turn meter, and then with Shoots First, you're going to attack again. So sure, in that second attack, you're dealing 50% less damage, but because you dropped them below 50% turn meter, now you're going to deal 75% more damage. So that's a win-win situation. You remove their turn meter, and you dealt them a lot of damage. Shoots First is a brilliant Zeta to me. I very much love that. And I love Commander Luke faction because he's what's coming next. It binds all things. This is the next Zeta that I would be equipping in the free-to-play farming guide. Let me be clear. I don't want you to just stack Zetas on characters simply because they're, available. Like, get around to getting these Zetas. I don't know. I checked with a few players, and it seems like it takes you a little bit longer to get Zeta, especially early on in the game. It definitely takes you longer to get Zetas. So what'll happen? Oh. Excuse me. Oh my gosh, guys. Sorry, this video's a mess. Ugh. Anyway, what I'm going to say here is that in the early, it's going to take you a long time to get your first Zeta. And then every Zeta after that gets easier and easier and takes less and less time. So it binds all things as first. This here, Whenever Luke resists a detrimental effect, he recovers 5% protection. And whenever he inflicts a debuff, he gains 10% turn meter and other allies gain half that amount. This is really, really good. This is a brilliant Zeta. I very much like this Zeta. I think it really adds a lot to Commander Luke. Again, turn meter gain is huge. Some protection recovery is nice. And it pairs really well with Learn Control, which we will get to in a little bit here. We will make sure to grab that Zeta at some point. Now, we also want to make sure that we get the leadership on Emperor Palpatine here. This is all about turn meter gain for the Empire. It's very important you get this Zeta. When a debuff expires on an enemy, Empire and Sith allies gain 5% turn meter. It doesn't sound like a crazy good Zeta. I'm telling you, it's huge. It is a huge Zeta. This is what drives the Empire. Without this leadership is just kind of right? But when you're talking about debuffs expiring, you gain extra turn meter. Think about when you're using Darth Vader. You force crush, I throw my darks, you throw the lightsaber and you kill somebody who had, say, 4 debuffs on them. That's 20% turn meter in the bank for your team. That expiring of debuffs is huge. It really adds so much to the Empire faction. I don't know how many players truly recognize that. It is huge, right? I'm telling you guys, I know it doesn't sound like this brilliant Zeta, and it seems underwhelming. It's a big Zeta, right? It's a very, very big Zeta. Really helps Emperor Palpatine. Now, next, we're going back to Darth Vader with no escape. I was struggling here of where to put this Zeta, and I wanted to move it closer to the top ones than not, and here's why. So 1, it adds health and protection recovery when damage over times expire. And whenever he activates Merciless Massacre, Dispel Stealth, that's nice. I mean, it's not super crucial, but it is nice. Here's the big part. He's immune to turn meter reduction. That means you can never remove Darth Vader's turn meter. That is the most important part of No Escape. The protection and health recovery is super nice. But being immune to turn meter reduction and turn meter reduction is huge. You can never take away his turn meter. So you go up against an Empire team with Commander Luke Skywalker, you try to remove Darth Vader's turn meter. It's never going to happen. Either stun him or he's taking turns and he's going to punish you for it. I think No Escape adds so much to Darth Vader. It makes the solos that much easier. Teams can't remove his turn meter, so he's going to get turns. It's very, very important there. Finally, we've got Learn Control. We've got to get the other Zeta on Commander Luke Skywalker here. Learn Control, when Luke doesn't have call to action, he has 50% critical avoidance and a 100% tenacity, right? Remember, down in this one, whenever he resists a detrimental effect, he recovers 5% protection. So, when he doesn't have call to action, he's got 100% tenacity, which means that he's going to be resisting debuffs a lot more, which means that he's going to be recovering protection. It's a super great Zeta. I very much think, and you're going to say to me, Phil, why do I have 2 Zetas on Luke and 2 on Darth Vader when I still have all these other characters? It's because sometimes it's important to, let's start here. 1, when you first get into Grand Arena, you're setting 4 teams on offense. You're setting, 3 teams on offense, 3 teams on defense. You're not setting that many Zeta. You're not setting that much stuff down. Right? You're not. We're not setting that many down. And if you really think about it, you have Darth Vader as a solo. You've got 2 teams here in Phoenix and Troopers. You've got Bosk, right? So now you're up to 4 different things. 4. Han and CLS is 5, and then Emperor Palpatine is 6. So now you have at least a single Zeta for offense and defense in every single zone. I'd say that's a win-win. So, Learn Control for me. I think it's very important to stack these characters with their Zetas. Eventually, you'll want all of them. But early on, I think these are the ones that I would prioritize. So, once you get there, the next Zeta I would equip is Protective Intuition on Beskar Armor Mando for your Scoundrels. Protective Intuition is a brilliant Zeta. I think it really can change the way you get to use this character. The first time each Scoundrel ally falls below 75% health, Beskar Mermando dispels all debuffs on himself, gains 1 stack of Whistling Birds, and the cooldown of Wonder of the Force is reset. So, Wonder of the Force, you gain, listen here, you dispel all the debuffs, you equalize the protection, you recover protection, remove turn meter, and then you gain damage immunity for 1 turn. The amount of times that this completely shifts the tide of battle is huge, and I think in the early game especially, damage immunity is just brutal, because so many players will try and stack all these big hits, they'll get you there, and then all of a sudden, damage immunity hits and there's nothing you can do. You get stuck behind a tank or something. It can really mess your team up. I think this is a Zeta that some players sleep on that I think is incredibly important. I love that Zeta so much for Beskar Mermando. Now, hold on here. So, next one you see here is Geonosians. And if you remember the farming guide, right, again, link below. What you've got to remember is that you're building other factions. And so some of these early Zetas you're going to be equipping might seem a little bit crazy. Like, why would I equip Queen's Will? This team is incredibly important for defense in Grand Arena. This team will completely trip players up in the early game if they don't know what they're doing. So at the start of the encounter, summon a Geonosian Brute who taunts for 1 turn. The Brute is such a good character. I love Geonosian Brute. The Queen's Will, just a fantastic, fantastic Zeta there. Again, the pre-taunt is super nice. Starting with 6 characters is even nicer. There's not much more to say here. This is a great Zeta. Simple tactics with Chief Chirpa. You need this Zeta to get through the C-3PO event. You need this Zeta to get through the C-3PO event. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. But the other thing, it's not really that bad in Grand Arena. This will stop players. I've seen Ewoks get... My Ewoks have gotten holds before. I think they can trip people up. Now, let's make a few things known here. So, Ewoks gain 20% turn meter and deal 10% more damage when they perform a basic attack. These are halved for other allies. That's pretty nice. When an Ewok uses a special ability, they have a 60% chance to call another random Ewok ally to assist. So, they gain 20% turn meter when they perform a basic. So, if you're calling assists, your team's turn meter gets juiced and you're dealing more damage. And there's plenty of assists in the Ewok teams. So, very, very good Zeta here. One that you need it for the C-3PO event, and because you're investing in it in the early game, you could use this team on offense, you could use this team on defense. Like, I could honestly say my Ewoks with their gear, I have beat some bounty hunter teams simply because you run enough of a train on them. It's not the easiest thing to pull off. You need to be really careful, especially when they get to higher gear and if yours are lower. But Ewoks can surprise you and beat some very, very good teams. Finally, we get to our King, the first Zeta we want to be equipping on our King. Listen, I know that some of you are going to say, oh, Phil, like, it's not that important, but you've got to remember, you're following along in the free-to-play farming guide here. You need to get all these other ones before I think it's worth getting Wampas. Our King, for a lot of you, is a Grand Arena-only character. So you can't afford to be investing in these Zetas as cool as it would look to have your first Zeta be Wampa. You can't afford to be doing that when it's only going to help you in a single game mode, whereas all the rest of these Zetas are going to help you in everything you do in Galaxy of Heroes. So, our King Wampa, we want to put it on Cornered Beast. That's because we want to be able to equip his Omichron. So, the Zeta here, just to show you, goes from 50% counter chance to 10%, Wampa has plus 10% counter chance, plus 5% health steal, plus 5% offense for each damage over time effect on each enemy. Fun fact here, this Zeta allowed you to use this team of Darth Vader, Wampa, Commander Luke, Hermit Yoda, and BB-8 to solo the old tank raid, the heroic tank raid. You could solo it with this team because Wampa would deal bonkers damage underneath Darth Vader's lead, because Darth Vader's lead would stack again with the Zeta. It stacks damage over times. So my Wampa would be hitting for stupid numbers on his basic because he's just constantly, he's getting 5% offense for every single damage over time effect. It was awesome. Again, That said, you're equipping this Zeta for the sole purpose of equipping his Omichron to make him the king of Grand Arena. Again, that's the big one. We've got to make him our cornered king. Not just a cornered beast, but the cornered king. Then we've got Loyal Friend for Chewbacca. Again, you're building this bounty hunter team. You built your bounty hunter team. Time to kind of flesh out this Commander Luke Skywalker team. Here, the Loyal Friend is when Chewbacca deals damage to an enemy, Chewbacca and all guarded allies recover 3% health and protection. I think this is an extremely important Zeta. It doesn't sound like a lot until you think that he's going to be assisting 2 allies with guard. He'll assist Han Solo and another character, and then he takes his own turn. So you think 3 out of the 5 turns, your team is extra characters are gaining 3% health and protection. That's not that bad, all things considered. And then you think about counterattacks on top of that. Guard can completely, adding the health and protection recovery to guard is huge. It completely changes how you have to tackle this team. Because if you just start trying to deal damage to Chewbacca and he's counterattacking you and they're gaining health and protection back, you just feel like you're making no progress on the team at all. It's crazy good. The other thing you have to keep in mind as well is with Pulverize here, dispel all buffs and deal damage to all enemies. So here, when you're dealing damage to all enemies, that's 5 instances of damage, which means you're dealing, right, on this Loyal Friend, whenever he deals damage to an enemy. So he's dealing damage to 5 enemies, which means 15% health and 15% protection. Very, very good Zeta there. Telling you guys, it sneaks up on you, right? Aggressive Tactician Veer's Unique. This is the one here where his unique is good as it is, where whenever an enemy's defeated, Imperial Trooper allies have a 60% chance to gain offense, or 80% chance to gain offense up for 2 turns, 40% chance to gain 50% turn meter. Basically, those go to, you're going to get offense up and you gain 50%, and you recover 10% protection. It gains a lot of stuff here. Here's why this one becomes important later on. In the early game, you're not going to have the gear on your Imperial Troopers where you're getting kills enough to start your turn meter train. That your turn meter train is often going to be simply from gaining buffs. That getting the kills is not going to get your turn meter train started. Whereas as you progress their gear levels, you progress their relic levels on other ones, this Zeta starts to become a lot more prevalent and a lot more important because you get that kill on the weakest enemy or whoever it is, and then you get your turn meter train going, and it just rolls and rolls and rolls. This is definitely one of those Zetas that you're going to want to equip if you want to use your Imperial Troopers. You cannot use them for forever without having this Zeta. Just incredibly important Zeta. Very much love that one. And finally, the last one I'm going to recommend here is Infiltrate and Disrupt. Now, what does this Zeta do? If Emperor Palpatine is the leader, he also gains 1.25% turn meter for each debuff inflicted by this ability. So, you're going to inflict offense down, shock, and stagger. Right? So there's 3 different debuffs there on 5 different enemies. So a total of 15 potential debuffs. So you're looking at gaining an extra 15% turn meter plus, what is that? Almost 20% turn meter from this ability. Mara Jade gains that, and then Palpatine, and that's on top of Palpatine's leadership. So, incredibly important Zetas here. I could go on and on about other Zetas, but I wanted to stop here because I think at this point in the game, if you've been following along the free-to-play farming guide, I don't know how many Zetas you're going to be able to equip after these. And I picked out the ones that I feel are the most important, that will have the biggest impacts to your account, that as I look through, you didn't get beyond, look, we didn't talk about anything for Jedi Knight Luke yet outside of getting the Wampa, because I think when you get Jedi Knight Luke, we should be in a little bit of a better position to be equipping Zetas. So I wanted to stop here. Again, there's plenty more Zetas I could go to. If you guys want me to do that, you let me know. But this is where I felt comfortable stopping based on how long I think it will take you to get to this point. Again, like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know all your thoughts. I love you guys so much. You all are fantastic. I'm going to enjoy some soda here. May the Force be with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.